The Labour Party's decision in the last few days to avoid targets for net migration, as articulated by Pat McFadden, represents a departure from the political norm of recent governments. You have to ask, is this a pragmatic admission of the futility of targets, or a revival of Blairite realism cloaked in McFadden's measured tones? Pat McFadden declared on Sky, I think, that targets for net migration haven't worked very well, is on the surface a refreshingly candid admission. The focus shifts from arbitrary numbers to addressing structural challenges, training the domestic workforce, reintegrating long-term sick individuals into employment, regulating migration flows according to economic needs. This approach, devoid of precise targets, contrasts sharply with Labour's historical reliance on slogans like British jobs for British workers under Gordon Brown, or more recently with the Conservatives' dogged pursuit of unattainable thresholds. So is this a retreat from accountability or a realistic embrace of the complexity of the problem? If you look back, the successive UK governments have grappled with immigration promises and almost universally have failed. Tony Blair avoided explicit targets but fostered an open-door approach and may be blamed for the problems that we have at the moment, granting work rights to EU member states. And by 2010, net migration had hit 239,000, far exceeding official expectations. When Cameron came in, his famous pledge to reduce net migration to the tens of thousands became a millstone round his neck. And despite tightening policies, figures peaked at 336,000 in 2015, eroding public trust and demonstrating that instead of the numbers going down from Tony Blair, they had gone up. They went up from 239,000 to 336,000. When Theresa May came in, she doubled down on the sub-100,000 target, describing it as a sustainable level. However, net migration remained consistently above 200,000. Boris Johnson abandoned specific targets, opting for a points-based system, yet net migration soared to a record 906,000 by June 2023, highlighting the challenges of managing global mobility in a post-Brexit framework. Rishi Sunak flirted with caps on refugee numbers, but even his restrictive policies failed to reduce net migration below 700,000. So these examples underscore the dissonance between rhetoric and reality. When it comes to immigration policy, targets, it seems, are not only ineffectual but often serve as a political bait, ensnaring those who grab them, these little minnows, nibbling on the bait, get anchored. And Labour's refusal, therefore, to set numerical targets feels reminiscent of Tony Blair's pragmatism, a willingness to prioritise economic necessity over populist pressures, and McFadden's emphasis on a workforce-first approach echoes Blair's ethos of aligning migration policy with broader national interests. But is this a revival or a retreat? Critics may argue it's simply an evasion of responsibility, leaving Labour vulnerable to accusations of indecision. Victoria Atkins, echoing Conservative frustrations, notes that voters want certainty, implying that numbers, however flawed, provide a sense of control. The timing of Labour's announcement is critical. With net migration hitting an unprecedented 906,000 in 2023, there's mounting public and political pressure for solutions. Yet the Conservatives' own targets have repeatedly fallen short. McFadden's avoidance of specifics, therefore, could be interpreted as realism, acknowledging the ebb and flow of migration dictated by global trends rather than attempting to stem the tide with sandcastles of policy. Starmer's commitment to a mission-led government with milestones rather than fixed targets signals a broader shift in political strategy, but is really a shift in rhetoric. Milestones, not targets. McFadden's statements, therefore, reflect an understanding that immigration is too dynamic for rigid frameworks or for promises. But will this resonate with voters? Targets, despite their flaws, often a tangible promise, even if seldom fulfilled. Labour's challenge lies in proving that a flexible, pragmatic approach can actually deliver real change where numbers have historically failed. There are alternatives to this. One is to demonstrate that actually migration is not a dangerous problem, that actually migrants are not taking all our benefits, migrants are not taking up room in hospitals and so on. That would be an interesting approach to reason with the electorate. So, is this Labour's moment of bold realism? Or is this an act of political self-preservation? Or is this hiding in the cupboard or the fridge? Perhaps in eschewing the unattainable, Labour is not whimpering out but laying the groundwork for a revival of credibility, unburdened by the failures of numerical dogma, or it's just about promises without opening the book of records. Only time and the next election is going to tell.